What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Canadian Football Fantasy Fix for Week 7 of the 2021 CFL season. I'm Ryan Coop here with your Week 7 defense preview. Yes, final position to go through this week. If you missed it, go back, check out the quarterback, running back, and wide receiver previews. Those are up on the channel already. But let's talk through the options at defense this week. And, I don't really love very many of them, to be honest. I'm kind of in the middle on a lot of them, but the one I really do like is the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They have averaged 11 points a game so far this year, which is a very high total, very impressive from the Bombers. Their price point is getting kind of high. It's at $5,260. If you want to get 2.5 points per $1,000, which would help you get to a 100-point week, you need 13.2 from them, which may be a bit of a stretch. But look, we saw last week Calgary's defense, which has not been good this year at all, put up 7 sacks against the Elks. And you've got one of the best pass rushes in the league between Willie Jefferson, Jackson Jeffcoat for the Bombers. And I believe Steve Richardson is practicing as well. It should help their run game stoppage there a little bit too. So you're going to get a couple sacks probably out of the Bombers defense. You know they're going to be able to force maybe a turnover or two. And they're putting up points each and every week from just holding their opponents to less points. 4 of 6 games this year, they've allowed less than 10 points. They're facing an Edmonton offense that has struggled to put touchdowns on the board a lot so far this year and going back to previous seasons. So I like the Bombers to cover get over 10 points once again this week. They got 10 last week against the Riders, 13 the week before. Really, it was just a 3-point week against Calgary in week 4. Other than that, every single week has been over 10 points for them. So they should be able to cover pretty good value for you, even at a more expensive price. So I like the Bombers to cover their value, but they are one of the more expensive defenses, which makes slotting them into your lineup a little more difficult. The ones I'm putting in as a yellow light, I say Calgary's defense at 45.02. Last week they had a big performance against the Edmonton Elks. They had their 7-sack day, which was a great coming out party for them. And they're facing a Hamilton offense where the offensive line has given up quite a few sacks this year. They're potentially, an inexperienced starting quarterback in David Watford, who hasn't gotten very many, if any, starts in the CFL. So I see some optimism there with that matchup against Hamilton and the way they played last week against Edmonton. But their track record on the majority of the season this year, besides that 12 points last week, they put up just 5, 4, 1, and -1 in the weeks before that. So we really haven't gotten much from Calgary prior to last week. So I'm cautious on them. I'm honestly probably staying away from them as one of the higher priced defenses. Maybe I should have put them in the red light category now that I talk through this further. I'm also cautious on Montreal's defense. And that's because, they've risen now to 42.90 is the salary. You need 10.7 points out of them. I think they are one of the better defensive options. They put up 13 points a couple weeks ago against Ottawa, but they're facing a BC offense that is giving up on the lower end when it comes to defenses. On average, defense is just putting up 4.8 points against them. And they have a pretty high-powered offense there in BC. And I don't think Michael Riley throws a ton of picks necessarily. So I'm a bit, cautious on them putting up a big point total this week for Montreal. For Hamilton, I'm kind of the same way, 38-37. You get a couple good weeks out of them, and then they fall back into place a little bit. Last week, just 5 points against Toronto. The week before, 14 points against the Argos. So which Ticats team are we going to get on defense against Calgary? If Levi Mitchell's not 100%, which I still don't fully think he is. Maybe it's a decent day for the Ticats, but they've been up and down this year. So especially with David Watford potentially starting at quarterback. What does that mean for how Hamilton's offense does? And is their defense going to be out on the field a ton, and are they going to get tired like we saw from them in the first couple games of the year? So I'm cautious on the Ticats. I could see that one going either way. BC has the second highest average at 9.8 out of any team in the league behind the Bombers. They've been very good defensively this year. But they're going against a Montreal team that has given up the least fantasy points to defenses out of anybody. Just on average, 2.8 points against the Alouettes. So they're not giving up very many sacks. They're not turning the ball over at all. And they're able to put points on the board, which is why, any other matchup, I'm probably picking BC as the defense to go with this week. But the Alouettes matchup for them is just not super favorable. Something's going to have to break. Either BC is going to fall back to the norm, or Montreal is going to give up more points to a defense than they normally do. So I'm not sure which one that will be necessarily. So I'm cautiously optimistic on the Lions for that reason. I'm also cautious on the Argos. $3,200, the facing Riders offense that has not really gotten a ton going in recent weeks. I think the offensive line has shown a little more of the inexperience we expected to see from them. And the Bombers put up 13 and 10 points against the Riders in back-to-back weeks. So I think the Argos have a good defense, and they potentially could put up the same, but they've also had a largely inconsistent year this year themselves. No game more than 7 points, and a couple games of just 3 and 2 in between. So I find it hard to project what we're going to see from the Argos, and I think it depends also on who's at quarterback for the Riders. The two defenses I'm for sure staying away from. The Riders are over $6,000, and in the past 2 games, they've put up 3 points and 0 points. And that's a disaster if you're putting that kind of salary in your lineup. So I'm staying away from the Riders' defense. I think they're missing a couple big pieces there. That doesn't help. Their offense hasn't gotten a lot going to help the defense out at all. And I think Toronto's a pretty decent team. So I'm saying stay away from the Riders at that price point. I don't think they're putting up 15.3 points for you this week. And I'm staying away from Edmonton's defense as well. Much like the BC matchup against Montreal, they have a really tough matchup. The Bombers don't give up sacks. Zach Collaros doesn't turn the ball over. And so, defenses only put up 3 fantasy points on average against Winnipeg per game. Edmonton did get a nice pick 6 last week and put up 8 points against Calgary, but that was their highest point total on the year. So the Elks really haven't gotten much going. In fact, I think that may have been the first turnover they forced on defense in 5 games so far this year, which is insane. So absolutely stay away from Edmonton's defense this week. So those are the options at defense. Again, I like the Bombers. The only thing is they're a little more expensive. I'm cautious on a lot of the other options. It's really hard to pick between the other ones for me. It depends on what the other price points are at. I kind of like BC, maybe a BC or a Hamilton, or maybe just Toronto for the cheapest possible option. But definitely staying away from Saskatchewan and Edmonton, and probably staying away from Calgary as well because they are more expensive. But those are the options at defense. Go back and check out quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers as well. I've covered every position this week to get you all set for Week 7 of CFL Fantasy. And then Friday, the week kicks off, so make sure you get your lineups in. The depth charts will come out on Friday as well. We'll have injury reports. I'll have a video up in the afternoon once those are out as well, just to help you get set before you finalize those lineups and make sure you don't put someone in there that's not going to play. Do all the YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't. If you have any fantasy questions, put them in the comments section. Tweet them at me at CooperTrooper42. I'm always happy to answer them or talk CFL Fantasy with you. And if you want to play CFL Fantasy against myself and other viewers, check the comment or the description of the video. There's a link there to the Canadian Football Fantasy Fix League on the official CFL Fantasy site. You can play alongside myself and other viewers. Stay tuned on Friday for the depth chart update. And in the meantime, thanks as always for watching. Have a good one. Take care. Bye.